So you heard that right. Yes, Vice President JD Vance is here. He will be joining us for the entire hour, and we're going to have a lot of fun. There's a lot of news to get to as well, including his new book that is out now, and we have a whole block on that coming up. But first, let's dive into the big topic of the day. He's been talking about it as well. President Trump balancing diplomacy and deterrence at the G7, advancing a peace deal with Iran, while putting the regime on notice that any nuclear breakout would be met with forceful consequences.
And if they do, they suffer unbelievable consequences. Not just a little bit like, I won't even tell you the consequences, but the consequences are the ultimate consequences. And they will not develop, purchase, buy, or any other thing. They're not going to acquire a nuclear weapon. If they do, all hell will rain down on them. And they're not going to do that.
And while the details of the deal remain under wraps, President Trump is promising the American people won't be kept in the dark for long.
I'll not only release it, I'll probably have a press conference and read it to you word by word so that the press covers it accurately. Because it's a very important document. And unlike Obama, who could have destroyed the Middle East with a horrible JCPOA, it is the worst agreement. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. Mine is a wall against a nuclear weapon.
But the Democrats remain opposed no matter what.
The word that comes to mind to me is incompetence. I just keep thinking that this has just been, it's just the height of incompetence with this government.
The president doesn't want you to see this agreement because it is essentially a report card on what a disaster this war has been.
If you were president, you never start this war.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, Vice President Vance, thanks for being here, and we're excited about your book. We're going to talk about it. You've been on air a lot today, and I guess maybe start off with the question of why can't you or won't you release that document now?
Yeah, so there's some diplomatic procedure at work here where the Qataris and the Pakistanis have been mediating this entire negotiation with the Iranians. And they've asked us effectively to sequence the way that we roll this out. I frankly don't understand it. We'd be happy to release the agreement today or tomorrow. We may release it as late as Friday, but fundamentally in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter because whether it's tomorrow, whether it's Friday, people are going to see what's in this agreement very soon. Friday, of course, is the formal signing ceremony and the kickoff of these negotiations, and that's when they've asked us to delay it. We're trying to push that forward. But look, the agreement's actually very simple. It says, 1, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. 2, the Straits of Hormuz are open. And number 3, there are all of these benefits contemplated that the Iranians can get if they behave, if they stop developing terrorism, if they stop funding terrorism, if they stop supporting the rebuilding of the nuclear arms program, they actually can get some real benefits. If they don't do any of that stuff, they don't get anything. And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstandings come from, is you've got Iranian propagandists out there saying, well, we get all these things. And they leave out the fact that they only get those things if they fundamentally transform themselves as a country. So the United States wins either way. As the president said, either they get nothing, we destroyed their nuclear program and the Straits of Hormuz are open, or they fundamentally transform themselves. And that's a big win, too. It's really up to them.
I'm going to ask you one last quick one. Maybe
Sure.
it's quick. Well, it's a quick question. I don't know about the answer. So it's a 60-day period that you would look at and see, are they complying? Why not delay the photo op of you next to them until that moment so that you know that they've actually complied instead of rewarding them with a moment with you before then?
I think the president thinks this way. I certainly think this way, that we're going to sit down and actually talk about these things, and he doesn't see a photo opportunity as rewarding them. Look, they're going to have to do some serious compliance and some very good things for the Americans in order for them to get any of the benefits of the bargain. So I don't see it as a reward to take a photograph. I see it as we're going to get very serious about these negotiations. And what I'm trying to do is send a signal that the entire American government is actually oriented towards getting a good outcome for the American people. I kind of want to figure out, how real are they? How fake are they? They're making a lot of promises. Are those promises actually going to be met with real action? That's why I'm going to show up to the negotiation. That's why I showed up to Pakistan a couple of months ago, and we're going to stay involved in this process throughout.
You've racked up the miles. Too bad.
Indeed. Too bad I don't get frequent flyer miles.
I know. Too bad you don't.
I travel in style.
We'll take it around the table. Jesse, you're next.
Well, from what I understand of the deal, it's the exact opposite of the Iran deal, where proxies and missiles are covered, because if they fund the proxies, then they don't get the economic benefits. And the missiles are covered because 85% of them have been destroyed and 90% of the industrial base has been destroyed. So they've been disarmed. They can't rearm because they can't manufacture more weapons. And now they can't really project power outside of their borders because they have no Air Force and they have no Navy, and they don't pose an imminent threat to the United States anymore. And they have no air defense, so we have full air superiority. Also, the difference between the Obama deal is they cannot build a nuclear weapon. They can't enrich at all, and they can't stockpile because they can't access the uranium. The dust is so deep down there, the only people that can get it is us. And if we even just let it sit there in a uranium grave for eternity, it's already destroyed their nuclear program. All the centrifuges are shattered. Their nuclear scientists are all dead. So if we do nothing, it's already accomplished the president's main objective, which is prevent them from ever getting a nuclear weapon. Everything that he laid out the day after the bombing started has been achieved. This does what the Obama deal doesn't do. And if they screw around and make mischief again, we could still reinstitute the blockade. We could still hit them again, so that's fine. And you've already seen oil go down into the 70s. Gas prices are, what, a couple cents away from the $3 range? Stock market at all-time high, and inflation should taper off as the Strait opens throughout the summer. So I think what Jessica really wants to say is thank you.
Jessica, do you want to say thank you?
Thank you for being here. It's very, very cool to have you with us, especially when we're discussing this topic that you're running point on. And I'm a little uncomfortable about what I'm about to do, but I've been amping myself up all day.
Oh, no.
So, no, it's not
Let me call the Secret Service.
No, they're already here, like 50 of you. You know, there's been leaked versions of this MOU, not just in the Iranian press, in the Saudi press, the Pakistani press. The American press has gotten their hands on some details as well. You know, the Wall Street Journal has it that Iran can immediately sell oil and that they're going to get some sanctions relief right off the bat. That was something that we heard was not going to happen. So they have an incentive to get this going by Friday, and there's going to be money changing hands. In the copies of the MOU that we've seen, again, leaked, we have this $300 billion fund. And I saw you last night, you were with Sean talking about it. He said, well, it's not our money. It's, you know, Gulf nation money, our partners' money, but that's still a $300 billion payday, and that's something that they desperately want to have. The punting on the nuclear program for the 60-day negotiation, you know, that's the real tough stuff of this, right? Like, that's the meat of what we really need to get done. And you say the JCPOA, you know, didn't have anything about that. It's in the preamble of the JCPOA that Iran will cease all efforts to have a nuclear weapon and enrichment will be held at about 3%.
Well, they can't enrich now because they can't get the dust, Jessica.
Also,
Barack Obama never buried it.
Well, the vice president is here. Don't interrupt me, and then it'll be over really fast.
Okay.
My part.
I wasn't interrupting him. I was interrupting you.
I meant me. Be polite for our guest.
Okay, I'll try my best.
And, you know, people who are disappointed with this deal, and it's not just Democrats, it's the whole spectrum of Republicans, from, you know, MAGA America First Republicans to traditional neocon Republicans, who are concerned that it doesn't actually get rid of this ballistic missile program, the proxy forces, the regime change, which were the initial promises of this war. And I think also that big Axios report last night was meaningful, where they said that CIA Director Ratcliffe, Rubio, and Hegseth, based on American intelligence, were doubting the kind of results they thought we could get out of this deal.
Yeah, so Jessica, let me address a couple of things, because I think you're making the same mistake, unfortunately, that a lot of the Iranian propagandists make when they talk about this,
Like
which
the
is
Wall Street Journal?
They talk about the benefits to the Iranians without any of the things the Iranians would have to give up and have to change in order to get those benefits. So you mentioned a $300 billion fund. I got to be very clear about this. Not a single cent of American money under any circumstance, no matter what the Iranians do, goes to Iran. Not a single cent of American money.
Other money.
Well, here's what this says. This says, for example, let's say that the United Arab Emirates, who have been a great ally, let's say they want to invest in a power plant in Iran. What this deal provides is that if the Iranians have done everything we require them to do, then we will allow the United Arab Emirates to do that, because they can't do that right now without American approval. So we're fundamentally saying if the Iranians transform how they interact with the world, we will transform how the world economy interacts with Iran. But if they don't do any of that stuff, they don't get any of these benefits. So I think all the Democrats who are saying, well, the Iranians get all these things, they don't get anything unless the total unless there's been a complete transformation of how Iran interacts with the world, that would be a huge win for America. And to Jesse's point, if they don't do any of these things, we don't give them anything, they don't receive anything, their nuclear program is still destroyed, their military is still destroyed, their missile program and industrial base is still destroyed. We fundamentally have transformed the Middle East. Whether they comply or not, this is just icing on the cake, assuming they do all the right things.
Can I just take a look? And then
Please.
Obviously it goes to Greg. So I guess two things. One, there's already been reporting that the Qataris have been paying off the Iranians to get them to.
I've seen the report, by the way, and we have a great relationship with the Qataris. It's just
no money has exchanged hands. Iran has not gotten a single dollar from any Gulf partners. Okay, and again, lots of criticism from the Republican side of this as well. It is a bipartisan concern.
Well, I think, look, some of the criticism comes from the fact that if Donald Trump were elected the supreme leader of Iran, the Democrats would still say that the United States had lost this. There is a fundamental refusal to acknowledge how much has changed in the Middle East over the last few months. And again, that assumes that nothing else happens. But if this deal actually comes to fruition, meaning if the Iranians actually comply with it, we have transformed the Middle East in a way that is amazingly beneficial for both the American people, but also the people of the Gulf.
Greg Gutfeld, it's your turn.
Well, I think I speak for a lot of people that I find a lot of these details really tedious. I mean, the results are already kind of obvious. These guys are going to figure it out, and if you show the plan to the media, they're going to criticize it. If you don't show it to them, they're going to criticize it. You can't win. Worst of all, the media and the Dems are the last people on earth to talk about a lack of transparency. They covered the Biden White House with a tarp. They ran interference on his administration, which was a Trojan horse for some of the most radical policies in the history of this country, from the border to biology. So save me your complaints. And by the way, you think that Trump doesn't want to talk about it? He talks about everything. Yeah. Obviously, this is a procedural thing. But again, who are you to pick on this plan after looking the other way for almost 5 decades? This has been a violent open sore on the planet forever, and Trump lanced it. And now you're complaining about what's in the little deal? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. I already know some things. I can see things with my own eyes. The Iran military is decimated. Infrastructure is gone. The economy is in a shambles, which means, as Jesse points out, the world's biggest state sponsor of terror isn't in operation. One way to stop an agent of chaos is putting their entire existence in chaos. And Trump kind of already knows. He does that all the time. He's like, if somebody's messing with him, you just make their life difficult. Did that with Iran. You can complain all you want, but that is a concrete success story. You can see with your eyes. Iran isn't sponsoring any terror. They can barely sponsor a Little League team. I've asked.
All right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.